Today I posted something on Facebook with regards to being alone. And because of some of the responses, I thought I should really put this on a video and send it to you, because every single person deals with being alone at some point. You know, you feel like, am I alone or am I lonely? And if you misinterpret aloneness, I can tell you now, it becomes loneliness. Now, aloneness is not a sin, but loneliness is very destructive. So I say it this way. When you're going through a season of being alone, is that season an instrument in God's hands? Is it a tool in God's hands? Or is it a weapon in Satan's hands destroying you? Because if aloneness, which could be very productive, turns to loneliness, it can be very destructive. Loneliness oftentimes is when somebody starts looking inward and start feeling sorry for themselves. When they start looking at other people and they're angry because those people, now it's their fault I am alone and lonely. So they can become cynical, angry, resentful, and filled with self-pity. That's not good. Now, the very first time God ever said something was not good is when he said, it is not good for man to be alone. Now, there could be a lot of reasons as to why it's not good for man to be alone, but I can give you two suggestions. Number one is because it was God's purpose that Adam be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And it was not possible for him to do unless he had somebody, a woman. And secondly, as I just mentioned, aloneness can be good, but if it turns to loneliness, it's very destructive. So it's not good for man to be alone. And so what I want to do is I want to take a bird's eye view of this to let's look at some of the biblical characters that dealt with aloneness, who didn't allow their aloneness to become loneliness and destroy them. But also I want to show you that God shows us, or the Bible actually shows us the whole entire overarching idea that solitude was common amongst the men of God. As a matter of fact, it seems like solitude was God's workbench, preparing these men for usefulness and fruitfulness. So let's look at some of these men in the Bible. First, we have Noah, a righteous man standing in the middle of a very corrupt generation, obeying God alone. Then we have Abraham, the pilgrim among strangers, called by God to leave his family, leave everything he was familiar with, and go to a place that he was not familiar with, alone. We have Hagar. She was overlooked. She was passed by. She was rejected and ultimately abandoned, except for by God. Can you imagine Joseph? Joseph, of course, all those closest to him hated him. They betrayed him. They sold him into slavery. He was taken to a foreign land. He was lied about. And then he was thrown into a prison and he was forgotten about. This guy must have experienced so much alone time. Yet he never allowed that alone time to turn into loneliness. Because if he did, that would have destroyed him. I mean, the list goes on of men of God and women who went through times of being alone before God used them in a great way. For instance, Moses, great example of a leader leading a great amount of people, all of them disgruntled, arguing, complaining, and criticizing Moses. I can only imagine, what he was going through. Then we have Elijah. Elijah ran from Jezebel. He ran in fear of his life. Then he went and sat under a broom tree in a semi-desert alone. We have Job sitting on an ash heap, sick, poor, abandoned, hopeless, and alone. And then we have John the Baptist living in the backside of a desert alone before God uses him. Ultimately, he lands up in a prison, in a cell alone. You have Jesus hanging on the cross. Before he does, he's actually in the garden praying alone. He used to go pray alone all the time. But then after the garden, he hangs on the cross and he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? So the point I'm trying to bring out is that God allows his servants to first experience aloneness before fruitfulness, aloneness before usefulness. And the takeaway principle is that God requires aloneness and we have to steward over that season of our lives, since every single one of us is going to experience it, have experienced it. Probably many of you are experiencing being alone. But just know this is God's ordained time for you to be on his workbench. You know, the potter's wheel. Aloneness is the potter's wheel. And he's forming you into a vessel that he can use for honorable purposes. So here's my prayer. Do not waste any season in your life, including the season of being alone. I'm praying for you.